So we're trying to figure out how to get an economy to produce more year after year. We know the building blocks of productivity are capital, technology, and institutions. What is the role of technology in stimulating economic growth? We know that some technologies are more productive than others. We know from the description of the pin factory in Adam Smith's The Wealth of Nations that even with the same amount of labor and the same tools, simply reorganizing how production is done, productivity can be increased massively. Where do new ideas about technologies of production come from? Well, for a given country, there are only two sources. One is to invent those new technologies, invest in research and development. Second is to look at technologies that already exist in other countries and to import them. If you are a country at the technological forefront, then invention really is your only option. If you are a developing country, though, you have both routes open to you. You can invent your own technologies, or you can copy it in various ways from what you see being done in other countries. Many technologies can be copied freely. Others can be done with the payment of the appropriate royalties. But the point is that one can move up the technology ladder by looking at what is done and adapting it appropriately from the more advanced countries. Technological innovation raises output in two distinct ways. First, it directly raises output because the technology of production itself is more productive by definition. But there's an indirect effect as well. That because you are getting more output from the same amount of inputs, then the capacity for savings is greater, and that can stimulate even further capital investment. Let us illustrate this with the example of growing sugarcane in a small plot of land with a small amount of capital. So we're in a situation where the farmer has some capital and he's producing his 9 pounds of sugarcane year after year, and he has savings of about $100, and that is just sufficient to replace depreciated capital every year. Let us say 1/3 of his capital depreciates every year and has to be replaced, and so he's in this steady state. 1 year comes along, though, in which he discovers a way to have higher yields. Perhaps he discovers a higher yielding strain of sugarcane. Or maybe he learns a new technique of planting. But in that year, because of this improved technology, his yields go up. Instead of producing 9 pounds of sugarcane with its given amount of labor and given amount of capital, he now produces 12 pounds of sugarcane. That means that he will end up with a surplus at the end of that year, which he didn't have before. He's now going to have $200 of savings. Only $100 has to be used to replace depreciated capital. And that extra $100 can now be invested to expand his capital stock, perhaps with an irrigation scheme. So now with more capital, output grows even further. So that's the direct effect that raises productivity from the existing capital stock, and the indirect effect that allows him to expand his capital stock because he was more productive. So if we have an economy whose capital stock and level of output has hit a steady state and is stagnant, then an increase in productivity is going to raise output. Innovation that raises productivity raises output. But in addition to that, the additional savings that allows the capital stock to expand raises output even further. And then once again, output stagnates because he now has a constant capital stock. And it's a higher capital stock, and so it's a higher level of output. The economy has grown, has been boosted by the technological innovation. So the innovation causes the economy to grow, but doesn't cause it to keep growing. For the economy to keep growing, it needs to keep innovating. So the way we get continuous growth is by continuous technological innovation. It's by constantly improving the technology of production. To achieve continuous economic growth, economies must continually apply more productive technologies.